Hello, you're watching Shalom World News. I'm Donna Villa from Chicago, USA. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. Pope Francis is making an appearance once more in a second Italian podcast that will be broadcast 4 months after the first, quote, Popecast, end quote, addressing younger audiences. Ahead of the World Youth Day in Lisbon, the pontiff wanted to address young people in his most recent one. His first podcast was launched in March, which coincided with the 10th anniversary of his pontificate. Salvatore Cernuccio's second Popecast was created in association with the podcast editorial team of Vatican Radio, Vatican News. The Pope listens to the recorded voices of young people with their vulnerability and their ingenuity. They share their worries as well as their hopes with the Holy Father. Each person receives a different reaction from Pope Francis, just as each narrative is distinct. The Holy Father advises everyone to strive ahead despite errors and setbacks with the knowledge that God's unending love will be there to support and encourage them. A UK-based radical Islamic preacher was remanded in custody on Monday, July 24, by a magistrate after he was charged by London's Metropolitan Police with 3 charges of terrorism. 56-year-old Anjem Chaudhary was charged with belonging to a prescribed organization addressing meetings calling for the support for the outfit and directing a terrorist organization. Along with Chaudhary, a 28-year-old Canadian named Khalid Hussein was also remanded after being charged with belonging to a proscribed group. Both the accused appeared separately at the Westminster Magistrates Court in London, where the charges related to an extreme form of Islam were heard. According to prosecutor Nick Price, the charges relate to the proscribed group Al-Mujahideen, which is also known as the Islamic Thinkers Society. Both the accused will appear before the Central Criminal Courthouse on August 4th. If Italian media reports are to be believed, Cardinal Matteo Zuppi of Bologna could now head to China on behalf of Pope Francis as part to effortlessly facilitate prisoner exchange in the Russia-Ukraine war. There are reports that Zuppi plans to meet high-ranking officials in Beijing to discuss humanitarian and peace initiatives in war-torn Ukraine. Apparently, Chinese officials are willing to host Zuppi, and the dates of the meeting are being discussed. According to some observers, the Cardinal could make a visit before the middle of August. One of the items on the agenda will be the return of Ukrainian children who were forcibly taken by Moscow troops. Earlier this summer, the head of the Italian Bishops' Conference was made the personal peace ambassador of Pope Francis. Early in June, he made a visit to Kiev, where he met Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky and top church officials. Later that month, he traveled to Moscow, where he held talks with foreign ministry officials and Patriarch Kirill of the Russian Orthodox Church. As the war in Ukraine continues, a historic church in the port city of Odesa has been damaged in a Russian attack. The Transfiguration Cathedral suffered damage in the attack, where 1 person was killed and 19 were injured. The attack took place on Sunday, July 23rd, and was confirmed by the Reuters news agency, quoting Governor Ole Kuiper, the head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. Major Archbishop Sviatoslav Shevchuk lamented the missile attack on the cathedral. In a statement, he said, quote, "I think the people who used to attend the cathedral to pray are crying today," end quote. He added that a Russian missile hit not just the sanctuary of their church, but also struck the heart of believers. The missile attack on the historic church was also deplored in a statement by UNESCO Director General Audrey Azoulay. Archbishop William Laurie of Baltimore said that the church should show greater charity, sensitivity, and genuine accompaniment while dealing with homosexuality. He made his appeal in a new document on the pastoral ministry targeting the so-called LGBT people and their families in his archdiocese. Archbishop Laurie said the pastoral approach should go hand in hand with the light of revelation and church teachings. In the preface to the 14-page manual titled, "Like Every Disciple," the prelate said, quote, "You and I are called to a lifelong journey of turning towards the Lord, seeking to know and love Him more and more deeply each day," end quote. He said the church with a mother's tenderness never forsakes or abandons any of her children. Instead, she seeks to draw them close to lead them to Christ, who fulfills their heart's desires. With just a few days left for World Youth Day to begin in Portugal's capital, Lisbon, the wooden cross and Marian icon symbolizing the event have concluded their pilgrimage across 21 dioceses in the country. The cross and the image of Our Lady, Salus Populi Romani, are now kept at the Lisbon Cathedral, and from there will be brought to the World Youth Day main venue. It is customary for the cross and the icon to be taken on a pilgrimage across all dioceses of the host nation as heralds of the gospel and accompany young people in a special way. In November 22, 2020, the two symbols were handed over to the young Portuguese believers during the Mass for the Solemnity of Christ the King at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. A Colombian pro-life initiative has announced that it has gotten the necessary signatures to request a constitutional amendment to protect life right from inception. According to the Referendum for Life, the support of 5% of Colombians with the voting rights, or 1.95 million voters, is necessary to advance a referendum. If voters say yes to the proposal, then the right to life is inviolable from conception and would be added to the Constitution's Article 11. Currently, it states that the right to life is inviolable and there shall be no death penalty. Head of Referendum for Life, Sarah Castellanos, said in a statement that the group has gathered more than 2 million signatures to be presented to the National Register's office requesting a vote. Once the number of signatures is validated by the Register's office, then the proposal will proceed to Congress for a debate. If it is approved, a plebiscite can be held to decide on the amendment. An overloaded passenger boat capsized in Indonesia's Sulawesi Island on Monday, July 24, killing at least 15 people and leaving 19 others missing. The vessel was traveling from Lanto village in southeast Sulawesi province to nearby Lagili village when it capsized. The wooden boat was carrying 40 people, though it was designed for just 20. Rescuers are searching for 19 people who are still missing in rough seas, while 15 bodies have been recovered. TV footage showed rescuers on fishing boats retrieving bodies and grieving relatives waiting for information at the port and local hospital. Indonesia is an archipelago with more than 17,000 islands, and ferries are a typical mode of transportation there. Accidents happen frequently because overcrowding is common and safety regulations are seldom met. The Nicaraguan dictatorship of President Daniel Ortega and his wife and Vice President Rosario Murillo has once again attacked the Catholic Church. This time, they have prevented retired priests from accessing their retirement funds. The report titled "Nicaragua, a Persecuted Church" details more than 500 attacks against the church and the nation since 2018. It says senior priests are not receiving their pensions from the National Priestly Insurance Fund, which is the product of years of contributions. This is because the bank accounts of the church have been frozen. The Episcopal Conference of Nicaragua set up the National Fund for Priests more than 20 years ago as a retirement fund. Researchers and lawyer Martha Patricia Molina's report details at least 529 attacks in the last 5 years. 90 of them were committed in the first half of this year. The report exposes the hostilities, persecution, siege, desecration, destruction, theft, expulsions, and confiscations by the dictatorship. The British Prime Minister's special envoy has invited the attention of members of the House of Commons to the violence in the Indian state of Manipur. Lawmaker Fiona Bruce said that the violence in the northeastern state was premeditated and systematic, adding that hundreds of churches have been destroyed. She also said that not much reporting has been taking place on this issue. This comes after the video of two women being stripped and paraded naked in Manipur went viral on social media, triggering national outrage. Separately, a top team of the Bishops' Conference in India visited the violence-hit state and deplored the silence and apathy of the law enforcement agencies in restoring law and order. The visit was a first of its kind ever since fighting broke out between the Hindu-majority Meitei people and the mostly Christian Kukis more than 2 months ago. In the ongoing violence, as many as 349 churches and church-run institutions have been destroyed. In response to the execution of death row convict Jermaine Cannon in Oklahoma, Archbishop Paul Coakley of Oklahoma City called for the repeal of the death penalty. Describing state executions as archaic punishment, the Archbishop sought prayers for the relatives of the victim and Cannon as well. The 51-year-old was put to death on July 20 by lethal injection at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAllister, roughly 130 miles outside Oklahoma City. According to the Associated Press, he was found guilty of killing a Tulsa woman in 1995 while hiding from authorities after escaping from a prison labor center. The prelate implored all people of goodwill to join him in advocating for the end to the death penalty in Oklahoma and instead working towards actual justice that respects human dignity and prioritizes healing the wounds of grief and loss. Human Rights Watch has charged the Malian military and the Wagner Group mercenaries from Russia with executing hundreds of civilians while conducting operations in the African nation. The rights group said abuses had been committed since the late 2020 or 2022 during military operations in response to the presence of Islamist armed groups in several towns in central Mali. The International Rights Organization also condemned instances of detainee mistreatment as well as the vandalism and theft of civilian property. The rights group reported that Malians have become victims caught up in the government's fight against armed groups. The human rights NGO also urged the African Union and the Economic Community of West African States to press for an end to abuses and hold the Malian authorities to account. The report follows an earlier one published this month that denounced widespread killing, rape, and looting in the country this year. In Muslim-majority Pakistan, a judge has refused to reject blasphemy charges foisted on a 32-year-old Christian man under anti-terrorism law. Lahore anti-terrorism judge Abnurgal Khan has rejected the application seeking the dismissal of terrorism charges against Imran Rehman, who belongs to the minority Christian community. Rehman, an employee of the Metrobus system in the metropolis of Lahore, was arrested by the Federal Investigation Agency on September 14, 2022, on a complaint that he shared a blasphemous message in a WhatsApp group. Speaking to Morning Star News, his attorney, Rana Hamid, said there is no legal provision yet for trying those accused of blasphemy under anti-terrorism laws. The lawyer alleged that although the Anti-Terrorism Act sections in the charge sheet are illegal, the judge refused to dismiss the charges. Members of minority communities are often targeted with blasphemy charges to settle scores or to take over their property. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us tomorrow. In the meantime, you can visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.